So as soon as I broadcast, just give it like a minute and then go ahead and start.
Yeah, perfect.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and hit broadcast now.
Hey, everybody, we're going to begin in just a minute, letting people get on. Excited to see you. Happy Saturday night. And got a great day today for you, the 14-day challenge. So hold on tight. We'll be started shortly. All right. Hey, everybody. Good evening. Happy Saturday. It's Saturday. It is day 6 of the 14-day challenge. 14 days in a row, 7 days a week, 2 weeks in a row, 14 days of focus, 14 days of growth, 14 days of leadership, 14 days of inspiration, taking the challenges in the world around us and turning them into opportunities and creating market share, growing our businesses, getting online, and adapting to a brave new world out there. You guys are just crushing the game. I'm seeing so many of your lives again, and people's viewership growing. And it's exciting to see you out there experimenting, getting your feet wet, understanding this. We've got to be bad before we can be good. We've got to be good before we can be great. And greatness is where we're headed. So we got to start. We got to get that down. And so we're in the 14-day challenge, 14 days of focus, 14 days of direction. We're taking directed action daily to grow our skill set, to grow our mindset, to grow our belief set, to grow our leadership, to grow our businesses out there. And man, listen, it is rocking right now. I just want to give you guys a couple of thoughts. You know, yesterday, one of our challenges was to build up others. We were talking about power words, and one of the greatest ways to move that from our conscious mind as a thought to our subconscious mind as a belief is to emotionally anchor it. And I talked about one of the easiest ways to create that emotional anchoring is to actually go use those power words for somebody else, you know, and I gave you guys some homework to do that with, but I was actually just doing that a little bit earlier today. I was going through one of our group communication tools, seeing people who were doing a great job that I didn't know, I've never talked to before, just sending them a little message, letting them know how proud of them I was, how great I think they could be. And it was just really uplifting to see all the messages back. And it never gets old making somebody else feel special, no matter what's going on in your life, no matter how down you might be, no matter how bad something might get. It always gets better when you take the focus off of you and put it onto somebody else. It's again, I just want to encourage you. The things we're doing in the 14-day challenge, these aren't do them once and then let them go. It's 14 little disciplines that we're going to begin to do on a daily or at least a regular basis. So we talked about 2xing our income producing activity or our impact producing activity. We talked about going live for 14 days. We talked about building out great content. We talked about power words. And today, we're going to start talking about posture, not necessarily your physical posture, like are you slouched, are you standing up, although that's part of it, but in the way you carry yourself. You know, leadership is really something that can be felt. It's something that can be subconsciously transmitted to somebody else. You just kind of look at some people and you know sometimes by the way they carry themselves, the way they talk, the way they look, just their demeanor, that they have something going on. And then you can see other people that you can just tell they're down and out. You can tell they're having a bad day. You can tell they're emotionally frazzled just by the way they carry them and the way they interact with people and with themselves. And so that's called posture. And so we're going to get into that today because that's going to set us up for our next talk tomorrow. If we get through posture today, our next talk tomorrow will be called Getting Massive on Messenger. And I'm going to give you the strategies I use to grow our businesses through Messenger. Almost any sort of business will benefit from this. It's tedious, okay? But listen, tedious or not, this is where you're going to make headway. Everybody else is pulling back. Everybody's scared. Everybody's waiting to see what happens, not you. You're taking new ground. You're deploying every strategy at your disposal, every strategy, every resource, understanding that right now is where you're going to separate yourself. You know, one of my buddies posted, and I sent it out on Instagram earlier today. If you're not following me on Instagram, go follow me on Instagram at Ian Pruckner. You'll see what I'm talking about. I posted this out. He said, for those of you who feel like maybe you have people that are way further ahead of you in life or in your business or in your field, you just feel like these people are miles ahead of you. Now is your time to play catch up. Now's the time to catch up, because they're going to get off their game. They're going to be worried. They're going to be distracted. They're going to get out of their habits, out of their routines. Even some of the great leaders that you know, they're going to be out of their routine a week or 2 weeks into this, and you're building a routine. Folks, they're not going to be able to compete with you if you're building a routine while they're losing routine. If you're focused on forcing growth when growth is evading them out into the minutia, right? And so I'm going to talk about getting massive on Messenger. But before we do that today, we need to talk about your posture, because you're going to need it in the growing and getting massive on Messenger message. Okay, you're going to need that when you start doing it. Before we do that, I just want to give you guys a couple of suggestions, a couple of tips on going live. You know, I talked about really the several best times a day to go live is one, on somebody's way to work. Second is during their lunch hour. Third is on the way home from work. And fourth would be, at night, 8, 9, 10 o'clock when they're getting ready to get in bed. They're just goofing around on their phone. Okay, I also told you that you should be consistent with when you are doing those lives. So now that you've been doing them for about 5 days, you should be able to start seeing some patterns. Okay, you should be able to start seeing some patterns in your viewership, in your engagement. And what you're going to notice is it's a little bit different every day. Sometimes the things you're going to be talking about really resonate with people. Sometimes they don't really resonate with people. This is important that you begin to identify that, because what that's showing you is your natural message and your natural audience. Not everything is going to resonate with everybody the same way. Okay, so you want to look at the things that are really, that are really getting you a lot of traction, a lot of shares, a lot of interaction, a lot of views. Okay, and that's kind of your wheelhouse. That's where you need to be focusing more of your energy on content creation. Okay. The rest of it, that's good. It's good to experiment, but just understand as you begin to see the patterns where your wheelhouse is, okay? And that's your brand. That's what people know you as. Now, you can change that, but understand that's what is right now. It's much easier to accelerate and accentuate what is than to try to mold something that is not right now, okay? But the other thing I want to challenge you to do is I want to challenge you to experiment with the time that you are doing your lives. Okay, we say, well, coach, how could I experiment with the time and also stay consistent? I'm glad you asked. Okay, and so here's what I do. Every once in a while, I throw out a test balloon. Okay, so I've got my consistent morning lives. Okay, every once in a while, I throw out a test balloon. So the other night, I did one out about 9 o'clock at night, 8:45, 9 o'clock at night, towards the end of the night. Had an enormous amount of live viewers on, much more than normal. Okay, but it actually didn't get the traction moving forward beyond that period of time, right? So more people found it, but it wasn't as widely shared, and actually didn't get as many views per person that was on live as some of my other things, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to maintain your consistent live, okay? And then you're going to experiment, okay? You're going to experiment with other times that you can go live. So you're going to always maintain. You're not going to say, well, today I'm going to do at night, so I'm not going to do my morning one. Or today I'm going to do at night, and I'm not going to do my afternoon one. You're going to keep your consistent one, and you're going to throw an additional one on top. You say, coach, where am I going to get the content? You know what? I could have sworn that there was a Zoom training on how to create content, endless content, that somebody in a 14-day challenge did just a couple of days ago. I might be mistaken, but I thought that was there. Okay, so listen, for the next couple of days, I want you to experiment. Now that you've got 5 or 6 days of data that you can look at, how many people view, how many are normally live, where does that kind of plateau out at, right? It's going to pick up views and then kind of level off. Where is that number? And then you're going to start experimenting with some other times, okay? If you get good traction, you're looking at 2 metrics, live viewership and the trail. The trail is the viewership after the live, right? Okay. The better the content, the more people watching it live, generally, the more of a trail it has, right? And so what you want to start doing is you do want to start experimenting with that a little bit. And what I would do is I would not experiment for like a week straight on the same one. I would do one or two. If you get really terrible results, I would leave that one and experiment with a different time. If you get really great results, I would do it a second time and see, was it a fluke, or are people, is my market, is my audience tending to view me more regularly or more consistently at this other time? Why is that important? Well, again, remember that you're consuming online real estate here, okay? You're populating the world with your content, your message, your brand, your vision, your leadership, okay? And so we want that message getting to as many people as we can. It's not necessarily about what time is good for us to do it or what we think is best, but it's about where the audience is getting the most value, right? And so we want to make sure that we're starting to experiment a little bit with that, okay? And understanding that, you know, if we get some really great results, we may want to pivot, and we want to pivot early, not later, right? The smaller our audience is right now, the easier it is to pivot and you know, make it work. So let's talk about posture and the power of posture. You know, how you carry yourself. You know, I always joke with people, but whenever I get a chance to spend time with somebody that's more successful than I am, I try to study them. I watch them intently. I study them. I look for the nuances. I listen to how they speak. I try to watch their facial expressions, their body language, their physical posture, their, you know, the way that they're communicating with people, the speed at which they move. You know, I always tell people I like to look at their heads and see, is their head like any bigger than my head, like physically bigger? Like, is there a bigger brain in there? What's causing these people to be so successful? And, you know, to my surprise, I've never seen anybody with a bigger head or a smaller head than normal. They're all pretty normal. And so that's not coming from some, you know, superhuman brain capacity. It's coming from the way that they interact with people. And successful people have a posture. They have a way of carrying themselves, a demeanor. You know, you ever kind of just see somebody and say, man, I wonder what that guy does. He's probably pretty successful. You just see this boss lady and you're like, I don't know what she's up to, but she looks like a boss. You know what I'm saying? And it's just this kind of subconscious, really root level communication system that exists in us as humans. We can create, it's like, you know, first impressions aren't everything. Don't judge a book by its cover. Unfortunately, you know, that sort of, you know, saying comes from somewhere. And that's our tendency to try to judge books by their cover. And most of the time, if we're being honest, right, we do have the capacity to relatively accurately judge most books, not all, but most books by their cover. Why? Because success leaves clues. Leadership leaves clues. And it's not just verbal. It's not just in the power words. It's not just in the outward results, but it's even in meeting somebody, how they shake your hand, the way that they pay attention to you or engage you in conversation. It's all posture, how they respond to criticism, okay, attack, how they act in times of great trial. That's all part of posture. So posture is really your demeanor, okay? It's your demeanor. It's the primitive instinct in your nonverbal communication system. It's giving you a sense about who you're dealing with, how they're going to deal with you, who they are, what their strengths and weaknesses are, without anybody saying a word. Some people you just kind of connect with, you know what I'm saying? And then other people, you're not quite sure why, but there's just not a jive there. What's happening there? It's the posture. It's that nonverbal, primitive communication system, okay? And it's how people feel about us, and it's how we make people feel, right? It's what they're perceiving and what we're giving off, okay? And so posture is not necessarily what we say, it's how we say it, right? It's not necessarily what we say, it's how we say it. It's how we carry ourselves when we're out and about. It's how we respond, you know, to criticism, to humor. It's our natural sort of reactions, how we project our energy. That's all part of posture, okay? It's how we make people feel, okay? And it's really, posture is broken up into three sort of places, okay? Number one is physical, our physical posture. Let me talk about physical posture. I gave you one piece of physical posture advice really early on. I want you to think if you can remember what that was in the 14-day challenge. It had to do with going live, and it was a piece of physical posture information or instruction. It was to what? Smile, right? Smile. Smiling is a posture. There's all sorts of scientific studies that when you meet people that are smiling, people tend to trust them more. They feel more at ease. They're more comfortable in sales. They tend to do more business more often for larger tickets. Okay, there's all sorts of research that says that there's just something about a smile that welcomes a response of compassion, of action, of trust. Okay, so physical, but it's not just smiling. It's physically how you're standing. Are your shoulders back? Is your head up high or at least level? You can tell a lot about somebody if they're always looking down. They're kind of slouched over, their head's down, their body language is a little weak. They're kind of sitting down versus sitting up in a bold, a bold, strong, postured stance, right? And again, this is a primitive sort of mechanism. If you want to see a great example of this, whether you like Donald Trump, you don't like Donald Trump, in the Republican debates 4 years ago, he was in an argument on stage with Marco Rubio and somebody else. And I watched posturing live on national TV, more clearly pronounced than anything that I'd ever seen. I mean, it was a master at work. And you could just tell that this guy, whether you like him or you dislike him, he's got a lot of practice negotiating and in this nonverbal sort of communication. And so he was standing there, right? And he's a pretty big guy. Marco Rubio's a little smaller, and Marco Rubio's looking up to him, the left, and he's saying something derogatory to him. And Donald Trump stands up tall, puts his chest back, and just kind of looks. And it was like he got 6 inches taller. It was bizarre. I stopped the TiVo and I watched that back. I called Jess and I'm like, watch this. I'm like, this guy just owned this dude, and he didn't even have to say anything. It was like, oh yeah, right? And it's just this way of physically being dominant, okay, or strategically physically being softer, right? Do you see how I'm saying something a little bit different right now? You see, kind of, I really haven't changed what I'm saying. You can dominate and you can really do, really bold moves, and you can do, incredible, incredible feats. But do you see how it's not what I said that was changing? It was the demeanor. It was the posture with which I was changing. My body language, my facial expressions, the tone and volume of my voice, my speech pattern. These are all parts of posture. And so there's a lot to learn in this. But guys, listen, you've got to become a prodigious noticer and observer of leaders in action, One of the greatest leadership hacks that I can give you in the 14-day challenge, especially now. Guys, listen, you want to get bold, you want to take action, you want to take new ground in these 14 days, in this crisis, you want to go boldly forward. You need to tune in and watch some of the greatest leaders and just watch how they carry themselves with an air of confidence, an air of calm, poise, but standing up tall, assertive. You just want to get those nonverbal cues. And this is where mastery comes in, guys. And listen, most people think, oh yeah, I heard that talk once. I know it. I already know. I know. Okay, listen. Okay, you mastered what they said. What about how they said it? What about why they said it? What about the nonverbal cues? What can you pick up from some of these great leaders? Okay, so physical posture. Here's a couple of great things, right? Sit up tall, stand up tall. Guys, listen, no joke. For Christmas last year, you ever seen that little thing on the infomercial where you wear, it's like this black contraption, right? And it pulls your shoulders back, right? It's like this thing in the back, you tighten it up. It's like a posture thing. I literally asked for that for Christmas last year, right? Because I wanted to improve my body language. I didn't want to be slouched forward. I just kind of had this natural tendency to have a little bit more of a round shoulder, and I wanted to have a natural tendency of being back and upright. And so listen, little stuff like this makes a big difference. Your handshake, is it firm? Is it not bone crushing, but firm? Or are you like, Gumby? You grab somebody's hand and you like melt into them like Pillsbury Doughboy. That doesn't say a lot about your posture, okay? So there's physical posturing, okay? There's physical posture, there's mental posture. What is mental posture? Mental posture is kind of your quickness, your wit. It's the ability to listen to what's happening and to be present. Okay, let me give you an example of mental posture. You're sitting there with a prospect. They're telling you about their life. You're thinking about the sandwich you'd like to eat. And so before you know it, they've been talking for 30 seconds, okay? And you have no idea what they just said. None. You couldn't even tell them their name, right? Okay. I don't know if it's just me, okay? If I'm just talking to myself, or if that happens to any of you on here. But this happens all the time, not just in business, personal relationship. What's happening is your mental posture is weak. You're not able to focus intently. Guys, listen, not just on people or relationships or interactions, but on conversations, on situations, on ideas, right? After this series of Zooms tonight, I've got a 10 p.m. with some of my leadership team. They've got some ideas. We're transitioning all online right now. I need to sit there, and my mental posture needs to be strong. Why? Because if I don't show up with my A game, with my mental posture, if people don't feel like I'm listening, I'm participating, I'm learning, and I'm engaging, I lose credibility with those people. They think, well, what's up with this guy? What's more important than this? And folks, they don't necessarily know why they feel that way, but you turn them off. They feel less inclined towards you than they did before. Guys, I'm giving you the science, okay? The science and the art of leadership, of building a following, of creating a brand, okay? And what you can do out there to differentiate yourself, but it's in the nuances. It's in the nuances. What sets apart a Rachel Hollis from every other female entrepreneur? Why is she so big? It's not the big things, it's the little things. It's the nuances about how she carries herself. It's that posture. So our mental posture, we're awake, we're alert, we're engaged. Okay, if we're not engaged, we need to, that's not somebody else's fault. Okay, listen, you might be listening to somebody that's dry as a doornail, okay, or whatever they say, dry as a doorknob, whatever that saying is, right? Okay, it's dry, it's boring. Our job as a leader is to become an active listener, to engage and to take something out of every situation we're in, right? We talked about become a prodigious noticer. Blah, blah, blah. It's not like I talk for a living, right? Okay. You become a prodigious noticer. And if you observe and teach, there's some of your content right there. Okay. But we need to be mentally postured. What is mental posture? Again, mental posture is being engaged. It's active. It's paying attention. It's listening to somebody, not with the intention to speak, but listening with the intention to understand so that you can provide value. Okay. And then emotional posture. Emotional posture is a bit of a difficult thing to try to describe, but there's always an emotional interaction that's happening between people, okay? Especially things like entertainment movies. Some movies just have the ability to go in and grab you emotionally. You're sitting there and you're like crying. You're like, it's Frozen 2, Dad. Why are you crying? Do you understand what I'm saying, right? And they just grab you. What's happening? The movie has an emotional posture, an emotional tone that connects with you and takes you somewhere. And emotional posturing is really, really important. And so sometimes you hear this in terms of mirroring, like body language, intensity, tone. That is pretty much the closest thing that I can explain emotional posturing to be like, is kind of the concept of mirroring. It's not mirroring because mirroring is letting them lead, right? In order for you to be a mirror, you would have to be reflecting something. That's not what this is about. This isn't about letting other people lead. This is about leading people to where you want them to go because they wanted to go there, right? Okay. And so that comes by creating an emotional posture, being emotionally aware of what's going on. You ever get in a conversation with somebody, they just like blow up on you out of nowhere? You're like, wow, I did not see that coming. That's an alert that your emotional posture is low. It's weak, right? You're not postured up. You're not engaging emotionally, right? Let me give you an example. I'm working with a couple of people right now, trying to get us online. We're working super long hours right now, getting this done, transitioning the businesses online. And there's some people who want to step in and help. There's a lot of people giving, direction, instruction, etc. Okay. And, and so I know this person, I know that person, I know how they're probably feeling right now. So I'm not going to get in on there, okay, and start messing around with that. I'm just going to sit back and let these guys kind of figure it out because I know the emotional posture of what's going on in there, right? I'm emotionally aware. In sales, if you're in any form of sales, so much of the intangible of sales is in the emotional posture. Being able to read between the lines of what's being said and feel what's being expressed on that subconscious, nonverbal, primal, instinctual communication system. A great salesperson knows when to turn up the heat, when to back it down. What is that? That's emotional posturing. It's emotional posturing. Okay. We've got to be aware of this. We've got to be aware that it works. So I'm going to give you, and we're definitely not going to get through this all tonight. So getting massive on Messenger is definitely going to be probably Monday night, tomorrow night. We're going to need to keep going over this because there's a lot of intangible here. And my job is, listen, if the intangibles are what is holding you back, and for many of you, that's what it is, because you've got the tangibles down, but you don't know what you don't know, right? Does that make sense? Like, this is bringing a ton of value to a ton of you right now because we're talking about stuff nobody really talks about. But this is the difference between people that build large followings and people who don't, people who build large businesses and people who don't, people who can't quite figure out why it's not happening for them, and people that can make it happen over and over again in different venues. How do we do that, right? Okay. So let's talk about a couple of easy ones, and then we'll dive a little bit deeper into more of the abstract, okay? So let's talk about posturing with just first impression, okay? Your dress, your attire, that needs to match the brand and the message that you're creating. So we're out there grabbing up online real estate right now, right? 2 years from now, people are going to find that. Okay, they're going to find, as you continue to grow your brand and influence, which you will, because what you focus on grows. Okay, you stay consistent, it will grow. You keep applying what I'm teaching you, it will grow. People are going to go back to those early things that you did. Okay, what's going to be there for them to see, right? What's your attire when it's public facing? Like, this is private facing, right? Okay, so I just kind of wear whatever I'm wearing, right? You're catching me at 9:30 p.m. at my house. I'm just wearing whatever I'm wearing, right? Okay. But if you're going to be public facing, your dress and attire needs to match the message. Okay, it needs to match the message. What do you mean by that? Let's say you are in real estate and you're trying to market yourself for being kind of a concierge, a service-based, high-end, expert. That's kind of your market. And then you show up in a polo. Well, you're underdressed for the market you're trying to serve. Your message and your image are in conflict. When you create conflict between your message and your image, people tune out. When there is alignment between your message and your image, people's subconscious alarm system does not go off. You ever feel like something just doesn't seem right about that person? Something, I'm just not quite sure. You see somebody on TV, and you're like, just kind of get the vibes. What's happening? There is a misalignment between the message and the image. Something is not aligned. So we're going to dress up because we're going up. Okay. And this is not just live, but it's actually every day in person. Okay. Until I was financially independent, I was in a business that required people to view me as being professional. So I never left the house without looking really, really sharp. Okay. Now, once I got to the point where I was financially independent, I didn't care whether or not you became a client. I wanted you to become a client, but I got to where I needed to be. Then I didn't care so much anymore, right? Okay. And I did what made me happy versus what I needed to do to communicate the message that I was trying to communicate. Okay. So it always needs to be in alignment. Let me give you an example. If you tune into my lives in the mornings, generally I'm, in a t-shirt, maybe a workout shirt, something like that. But generally I'm not very dressed up. The reason I'm not dressed up is my message is not, let's go grind out there and be the corporate type and, work is everything and right? My message is really, let's build residual income. Let's get free. Let's not, follow blindly in the system. Okay. And let's develop ourselves, develop our skill set, and go and make our dreams a reality. Right. And so you catch me living my dream. That is my message. My message is I went from living a nightmare to living a dream. And let me teach you how you can do that too, through what I learned and applied along the way, right? But our dress needs to match, okay? You need to look the part. Let's talk about hygiene, okay? just your physical upkeep. Okay. I'm seeing on some of your lives, God bless you, but your hair looks like you just got out of dadgum wind tunnel. Okay. Well, unless you're selling wind tunnels, okay, and you want people to see the demonstration of how unbelievable that wind tunnel was, it probably isn't good for your hair to be looking like a dadgum wind tunnel. Okay. Your hair, your makeup, guys, you got a bunch of earrings and stuff, or you got a lot of tats or something. Listen, I have a tattoo. I used to have a bunch of earrings. Okay. I understand that. Okay. But you need to ask, is that conflicting with your message and your brand? If it is, okay, let's go ahead and align a little bit more with what we want people to see in the beginning until our brand is solidified. Once our brand is solidified and people follow us because of our content, we built relationship with them online. Okay, we need to make sure that our brand and our image, our upkeep is matching what we want it to be. Okay, now listen, let's talk about it, right? Keep your head up, keep your chin up. Eye contact, that's a big one. You ever sit with somebody and they're just looking all over the room? Like when they're talking to you, they won't keep eye contact with you. That is a big deal in posturing. Smile, your tone of voice, your speech patterns. Okay, listen, what I find is a leader, it's generally best to have a little bit of a faster speech pattern, a little bit of a more aggressive speech pattern. Okay, we want to make sure that we are, that we're conveying that we're going somewhere, that if you're not following us, you should be. Something big's going to happen. I'm making something happen. Moves are happening around me. And people get that by how you're talking. See, even right now, if I'm talking a little bit more aggressively, I've increased my rate of speech, my tone of voice up just a little bit more. It impacts you just a little bit differently than if I were to be sitting here kind of talking like this. It just has a little bit of a different message, a little bit of a different feel. You know what I'm saying, right? So you see, and I'm doing my best to examine that. So let's talk about our 14-day challenge. Okay, so we're out of time. Our 14-day challenge today is we're going to go live at a different time. We're going to add a second live during the day for a couple of days. We're going to begin to experiment. So I'd like to see those 2 a days, the one you're normally doing and one at a different time. Okay, and here's what I want you to write down. I want you to look at. How many people are viewing you live in the experimental time versus your normal time? And how many views are you getting 24 and 48 hours in on both? And what that's going to do is going to help you kind of figure out where you want to shift your marketing and your messaging to stick on a regular basis. All right, guys, thank you so much. We'll see you tomorrow night. Talk to you soon.